Morning Baraka.
Indeed, indeed. Remember to visit us on our exclusive YouTube channel where we will be uploading up-to-date videos aired every Monday and Friday morning.
Inshallah. And we at the studio and the team hope to spread the message of Imam Hussein alayhi salam and to let the masses out there know what happened on the day of Ashura.
Inshallah. Well, let us, inshallah, bless your Friday morning with, as ever, Mustafa Ali, an amazing rendition of the Holy Quran. He's been blessing our studio ever since the start of the series, and inshallah he'll bless the studio today with a rendition from the Holy Quran and ayah from Surah Imran.
We also have Brother Ibrahim Ansari on the couch and our daily du'as, and today we'll be looking at the Maqtal of Arba'in, a du'a that's very important during
shrine of Abi Abdullah al-Hussein, Aba Abdullah. We understand the pain of losing a loved one and wanting to do the best for their akhirah. That is why Morning Baraka is giving you the opportunity to give comfort to those on Morning Baraka here on IMAM HUSSEIN TV3.
If you would like to participate in this initiative, please send the name of the marhum you would like the ziyarat read for to either Morning Baraka at imamhussein.tv or comment your marhumeen's names on our Instagram page at IMAM HUSSEIN 3 TV, and we will make sure this gift reaches them.
Yes, as ever, we start today's proceedings and every other program with the lovely voice of Mustafa Al Ali. As you know, his voice is quite tremendous, especially when it comes to recitation of the Quran. And he is with us today.
Yeah. Assalamu alaikum, brother.
Alaikum assalam wa
How are you doing?
Alhamdulillah.
Good.
Mustafa, I believe of the next couple of episodes, you'll be going through Surah Al Imran.
Correct.
And that's chapter, for the convenience of the viewers, it's chapter 3. But we're going to start quite early in the chapter and verse 26 for today.
Yes.
All right, please take it away.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. قل اللهم مالك الملك تؤتي الملك من تشاء قل اللهم مالك الملك تؤتي الملك من تشاء وتنزع الملك ممن تشاء وتعز من تشاء وتذل من تشاء بيدك الخير إنك على كل شيء قدير. تولج الليل في النهار وتولج النهار في الليل وتخرج الحي من الميت وتخرج الميت من الحي وترزق من تشاء بغير حساب. تولج الليل في النهار وتولج النهار في الليل وتخرج الحي من الميت وتخرج الميت من الحي وترزق من تشاء بغير حساب. وترزق من تشاء بغير حساب صدق الله العلي العظيم.
Many thanks once again, Mustafa Al Ali, for that tremendous rendition of the Holy Quran to really kickstart our morning today on Morning Baraka. This part of the program, we are looking into the different du'as and the supplications and the ziyaras that are associated with the months of Muharram and Safar, be it the events of Ashura and Arba'in and all the events associated with these two sad months. To take us through these different insights, we are joined by Ibrahim Al Ansari. Assalamu alaikum, Ibrahim.
Alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah.
As ever, we very much enjoy your beautiful insights into the supplications and the ziyaras.
I enjoy being present around two beautiful people like yourselves.
No, inshallah.
Jazakumullah khair. It's honestly a pleasure to be here.
No, thank you
thank
so
you very
much.
much.
Really, I'm sure the viewers are benefiting greatly, and not just from yourself, but brother Ali Fadhil
And
as
from
well.
yourself as well, of course.
Well, I'm just, I'm the blessed one sitting in the middle and just reaping the benefits and learning from you both. So today, this morning, we're going to be speaking about the Maqdal and really about Arba'in and sort of the whole event that is manifested in today and what it has, how it started. This tradition, and certainly as you're both from the land of Iraq, that it'd be interesting, I'm sure, from the viewer's perspective, how it's changed over sort of the centuries, recent times. I'm sure we'd love to learn more. So
I think if for 30 seconds you give me the role of a presenter, and I would go back to Mullah Ali. I have heard and I've seen of posters of you going to Arba'in, and I've seen pictures and videos of you being in the land of Karbala.
Yeah.
So Mullah Ali, if you could just quickly give us an insight of how your ziyarah trip was.
Well, look, I mean, firstly, it's actually a very new phenomenon for us. Not just Iraqis, but because obviously, as we know, ziyarah in itself, the whole of the ziyarah, has only been introduced to our generation since 2004, I believe, after the fall of the previous regime. Because before that, it was only the locals. And actually, I was listening to one of my uncles who was explaining the experiences, and he was saying that on the day of Arba'in, there was an atmosphere. People still walked. This is the amazing thing, right? Because back in those days, if you would walk with the intention of Arba'in, right, you would be killed.
wow.
Arms, legs, whatever, they'd be annihilated, right? So what people did was, instead of walking as groups, they would walk individually. And you would see it was very apparent in the air that today is the day of Arba'in. Although there was no flags as we see today, there was no procession, there was no drums or anything like that. But you would know it's the day of Arba'in because of the way people were walking.
Amazing.
They would still walk, so they would start from like the Fajr time in their own homes, and they'd walk in little groups. But in their minds, you can almost feel like if you just put a bubble and their thoughts were in the air, it would be the full Arba'in experience.
That's
like
amazing.
the screaming of Labbaik Ya Hussein, but it was all in silence.
Wow.
Everything was
honestly
silent. The day of Arba'in would be absolutely silent in Karbala, but the people walking, you can tell that that silence just spoke volumes because the people around, the locals, they knew it. So alhamdulillah, it's a very new phenomenon, and year in, year out, the numbers have been increasing, and we've heard records of 20 million, 27 million, whatever it may be. It could be 1 or it could be 27 million. Who cares?
Do you think in all of history it's been like, it's always been, obviously we're talking about modern history here, so what about centuries before? Has it been something that's, in the times of sort of probably Ahl Bayt periods?
Yeah, there was. So what would happen? I've heard in the narrations actually, or in the history books, that people would do reenactments around in and around the shrine. So back in, I think, the Safavid era, they were very high on majalis, and they were very high in interest and commitment to recreating the story of Karbala in theatrical form. So perhaps during those days they did something around the walking aspect. But for us, I think it's quite a new phenomenon. And
MashaAllah, it's amazing. And now we're going to resume your role as a guest.
So in terms of, we were discussing about the maqtal, weren't we?
Yes.
So there's a maqtal of Ashura, and just for the benefit of the viewers, maqtal, I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, is the actual narration as per the historians and the narrators of the specific acts that happen, the actual thing that happened. It's not like a storytelling, it's not poetic. It's not. It's the actual narration of what actually happened. For Ashura and Arba'in.
Yeah, so maqtal, if we were to translate it literally, it means the killing. So maqtal, literally translated, is the killing. So the maqtal of Imam Hussein is the killing of Imam Hussein, and the way his martyrdom was done. And when we look at the maqtal of Imam Hussein specifically, it talks about his whole journey. So if we were to look at the full maqtal, it starts off all the way from the messages that he was sent from Kufa, to Muslim ibn Aqil going into Kufa, to then Imam Hussein making his way towards Iraq himself, towards Kufa, and then him hearing of the martyrdom of Muslim ibn Aqil and Hani ibn Urwa. So when he comes, I think, to a place called Zarud, and he stays there, he stands there, and he sees two Kufans coming towards his way, and he asks them, "How did you leave Kufa?" They say to him, "By Allah, we have not left Kufa until Hani and Muslims' feet were being dragged in the streets of Kufa."
Wow.
So this is how Kufa was left. Imam Hussein heard this on his way to Karbala. So then he comes to a place close to Karbala, and of course he is not allowed entry. And then they ask him to turn away, and in fact, in one of the narrations that talk about the killing, it is narrated that Umar ibn Sa'd, may Allah withdraw his mercy from him, he tried to tell Imam Hussein to go. Turn your back and go and don't enter. Shimr ibn Dhul Jawshan turns around to Umar ibn Sa'd. Of course, this is one of the narrations. He turns around to him and he says, "What are you doing? If you were to let Imam Hussein, if you were to let Hussein, as he would say, if you were to let Imam Hussein go, you will not get what Ubaydullah has offered you." And of course, the killing actually happened for worldly desires. Nothing more, nothing less. And to actually, the evidence to that is when Imam Hussein was on the floor, no one dared to actually come forward to him. So in the actual killing, when we read it, we see Imam Hussein is helpless. Literally helpless, and no one would actually dare to come. If he flinches, they get scared.
Absolutely.
Because they actually, you know, this is one of the things about the enemies of Ahlul Bayt in that time. They knew the true status of Ahlul Bayt.
Yes.
They knew the status. And one of them, in fact, he actually narrates this. He says, "We were 10 that went forward to the Imam." And he says, whenever he would move his lips, we would start shaking, because we know if he was to start supplication, if he was to start dua, everything will collapse.
And amazing how the audacity and the shaitan in them just made them pursue that path. They didn't. The truth was there in front of them, and yet they could continue that way.
Definitely.
And the maqtal of Arba'in. So how does because you said maqtal. So
yeah, maqtal is the killing. What happened then is, so linking it to Arba'in. As for Arba'in, people, because they are used to the tragedy being called the maqtal, they carried on to call it the maqtal of Arba'in.
Right, okay.
But in fact, it is the tragedy of Arba'in. I think is more suitable.
Right.
And that specifically mentions of what happened on that specific day. And of course, on that specific day, as we know, is the return of the capturers to the land of Karbala. And actually in specific narrations, it is the return. And some people actually call this the return of the heads to the bodies.
Right.
Which is very powerful, I think. Because Imam al-Sajjad, when he buried the bodies into the grave, we literally say he buried the bodies.
Yes.
With no head. With no head.
Because the heads were taken on spears to
Sham.
To Sham and other places.
And they take them everywhere. And it's as if they have this prize that they have won of, yes, this is Imam Hussein's head, this is...
So and the heads were then returned back to their bodies.
This is when they were returned. and they were returned by the hands of Lady Zainab.
Lady Zainab. And so in terms of the whole Arba'een and the concept of Arba'een, that's the roots of it. So essentially it's the return of Sayyidah Zainab as she's going back to Medina.
And it
Yes.
is on the 40th, or is that sort of round about time?
Arba'een literally means the 40th after a specific demise.
Yes.
Or it could also mean the 40th after a birth. So this is the thing. So for example, you have when a newborn is when a newborn is born, when they celebrate its 40th, it's 40 days after they are born. Is this Arab tradition that there is
of 40 days?
40 days.
Right.
So even after the demise of a specific person, after 40 days, you would commemorate their 40th.
Yes.
Their 40th meaning the
they do.
40th day
Yeah.
after their demise. And very interestingly, that in the Arba'in, the 40th of Imam Hussein was in fact the first day, the first time that anyone had visited the Imam. And that is when we see that Jabir ibn Abdullah being
was
the
about
first
to-
of those who visited. And that was in fact on the 40th.
It was on the
Of
40th.
Imam Hussein.
Yeah.
So again, I think what you're alluding to is,
Yes.
is the narration of, is it a year and 40 days,
Yes,
or is
or-
it 40 days? That's the
Regardless
controversy.
of which narration is right, we all know it is on the 20th of Safar. So it's 40 days after.
Right.
Now, for us to say which specific narration is right, to be honest with you, there's so many things about Ashura, there's so many things about the walk of the capturers to Kufa and then to Sham, that when we look at, sometimes could not really make complete sense in our heads, and some of them make more sense than others. So for example, the
you're
burying of Imam Sajjad and the bodies, he went from Kufa to Karbala on that night to bury the bodies.
Yeah. No one can really
No one,
Yeah.
but
understand
that is specific to the Imam himself.
Yeah.
He had this ability to actually be there, go, bury the bodies and go back.
Yeah.
And that
As
would
for
be,
the walk,
sorry, I was going to say that's actually evident in history with Imam Reza Islam, wasn't
Yes.
he? Who is buried so far away from the Imams, and
Yeah.
and
Yeah,
a
yeah.
Masum can only bury Masum.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah.
And you had Imam Jawad going to bury him. And as for the actual walk of the Sabaya, the narrators, they differ on that. I don't think it is my stance to say which narration is stronger or not.
Right.
Yeah.
So inshallah, we'll
But
refer back
essentially-
to our scholars.
Yeah, essentially it's that the roots of it is
Yeah.
the caravan of
Yeah.
Sayyidah Zainab
Coming
and Imam
back.
Sajjad coming back to
Yes.
visit Imam
On
Hussein
their way
alayhi
to
salam.
Medina.
On
And
their
to
way
bring it back to
Medina.
today, then, so
Yeah.
every step that everybody, like we all, depart with the intention of replicating those steps,
Yes.
don't we? Whether
Yes.
they're coming from Basra and they're taking 2 weeks to walk, is it?
2-3
Something like that?
weeks, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then or Najaf, which is obviously, however long people, 3 days, 1 day.
2 years ago,
Yeah.
there were 2 people that walked from China to Karbala.
Oh, subhanallah.
Wow.
From China to Karbala. And I remember when going to the shrine, I was sitting with one of the people inside the shrine, and he was telling us of how they welcomed them, and
Wow.
and that
They
walk
made a
took them a year.
ceremony.
Took them a year. And they planned it out, they planned their route, and they walked from
Really?
China all the way to Imam Hussein.
That's
This is love for
amazing.
Imam
Yeah.
Hussein.
And I guess, look,
That's
it's got spiritual roots
Yes.
as well,
Yes.
because Imam
Yes.
Sadiq alayhi salam narrates that, of the 5 signs of a believer,
Yeah.
one of them is the ziyarah of Arba'een.
Yes.
Imam al-Askari, yes.
Yeah, sorry, Imam
Yeah.
al-Askari. Yeah, Imam al-Askari narrates
Yeah.
that one of the 5 signs of a believer. So one of them is, for example, wearing a ring on your right hand,
Yeah.
the
Saying
sign
Bismillah
of
ar-Rahman ar-Rahim out
prostration,
loud.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim out loud. So
Yeah.
one of the 5 signs is actually ziyarat Arba'een. So
Ziyarat
it's got
Arba'een.
spiritual and even narrations that back up Arba'een. It's
Definitely.
not just a cultural thing that people have
Definitely.
created.
So alongside the culture of it being the 40th day after that, like you very beautifully mentioned, the Imams actually tell us Arba'in is important,
Yeah.
to the extent where, like you very beautifully mentioned, it is one of the signs of the believer.
So we've only got a couple of minutes left.
yeah.
Would you like to go through sort of a short
What
sort
happened
of
on the day,
narration?
inshallah. So the caravan, they come towards 2 routes, and the leader of the caravan, he turns around and he says to them, which route do you want me to take? So Lady Zainab turns around to Imam Zain al-Abidin and she says to him, let him take us through Karbala. Of course, as this is happening, Jabir ibn Abdullah, he approaches the land of Karbala. Alongside his servant, he says to him, take me to the river so I may wash. He washes his body, he wears the most pure of his clothes. He puts on the most beautiful scents on his body. This shows how we should actually approach Imam Hussein in ziyarah. He puts one of the most beautiful scents on his body, and he approaches the graves. He shouts, Hussein, Ya Hussein. There is no reply, so he turns around, he says, حبيب لا يجيب حبيبا وأنا لك بالجواب. A lover does not answer his lover, and how can you answer me whilst you are torn into pieces? Ajarakumullah. He goes grave by grave until by one grave he smells a specific scent. Jabir ibn Abdullah was blind. He smells a specific scent. It's the scent of Rasulullah. He falls onto that grave unconscious, shouting, Ya Hussein. As he is in this state, the caravan approach Karbala. They see a caravan approaching. He gets up, he says, who are these people? They get closer, and then he smells the scent of Rasulullah and Imam Zainul Abidin. He falls to the floor, kissing his feet. The Imam helps him up, takes him around Karbala. Oh Jabir, this is where the companions were killed. Oh Jabir, this is where Ali al-Akbar was torn into pieces. Oh Jabir, this is where Qasim was struck on his head. Oh Jabir, this is where Abbas lost both of his hands. This is where he was struck on the head. This is where Abdullah was hit with an arrow. This is where the tents were burnt. This is where the children were trampled on by horses. Oh Jabir, this is where my father was slaughtered. Ajarakumullah. As they are in that state, Lady Zainab, according to some narrations, she approaches the grave of Imam Hussein. In the actual narrations, it says how Lady Zainab would run from grave to grave because it is all her sons, all her children, her brothers, her uncles, her cousins. So she would run from grave to grave until she gets to the grave of Aba Abdullah. She had something hidden under her abaya. She opens it and it is the head of Aba Abdullah. Khoya najit جبت الراس وياي من السبي وكانت به سلواي وهسه يا صار منواي اشكي لك احوالي بممشاي يا والله اشكي لك احوالي بممشاي إنا لله وإنا إليه راجعون.
Zahra, any last words or next segment?
Next segment, I think.
Yeah.
Let's just
Thank you so much for your time once again, Ibrahim, on the daily du'as segment of Morning Baraka. You're going to see exactly what we've talked about in terms of the Ziyarah of Arba'een and how it's manifested in this day and age, in this generation, and how people commemorate this momentous occasion. After that, verses of love with myself.
Aid me, come aid me, Ya Hussein, and if my 2 feet fail me, if my eyes were not to mourn, you save me. If they fail to walk at all, Sayyidi, then I will crawl, and my tear had better fall. Come aid me. I'm crazy, I'm crazy. In your loving, it's the way you raise me, and no medicine will heal or change me. It's the way I want to stand. A lunatic for Hussein. No one can control the rain. I'm crazy. So leave me. So leave me. Let my tear flow for Hussein and leave me. Let the blood rain for Hussein and bleed free. Let the heavens aching eyes cry until they are dry. And stop asking all your whys and leave me. When near you, when near you. If you hear me, can you make me hear you? I am walking up to your shrine tearful. Let them call me what they call. When for you my tears they fall. Zainab is catching them all and counting. My reason, my reason. My day and my night and my four seasons. My blood and heart and the air I'm breathing. My spirit, you are my soul. Sayyidi, you are my goal. Sayyidi, you are my all, my reason. They told me life would be full of pain, but only Abba Abdullah's love consoles me. And you overpower and control me. I am in your holy hand, submitting to your command. And when I enter your land, console me. Come aid me, come aid me, Ya Hussein, and if my 2 feet fail me, if my eyes were not to mourn me, save me. If they fail to walk at all, Sayyidi, then I will crawl, and my tear has better fall. Come aid me.
So as you can see on your screens, the millions of people are arriving in Karbala, still arriving in Iraq, even starting their journeys. So some people have finished their journeys, some people are starting their journeys, but essentially it's all leading up to the time of Arba'een. Verses of Love now, with my guest Nouri Sardar. Once again, we've been having some fascinating discussions surrounding the mindset behind poetry and recitation, and the different audiences that we can target, and the different styles and so on and so forth. So from our last conversation, we were talking a lot about the process of creativity, what you really go through when writing a certain poem, be it the different types. Are you writing for a certain person, or are you writing for a track, or are you writing for an audience? And it's really meticulous, the amount of depth that you go to when actually writing a poem. So a lot of it's the reason why we're discussing this is because for the audience, what I want them to understand is that when writing a poem, you can, because the main message is look, whatever's in your heart, put it into paper, right? But actually, there's more to it than that. Nouri, there's more to it than just writing on. There's a process. There's a reason why you're writing, who you're writing it for. Are you, of course, there's intention involved, but there has to be some sort of structure behind it, right? And actually, we discussed the reason why people don't write. And in this day and age, people don't write and don't publish anything for the fear of failure, or the fear of shame, or, for example, they won't get the amount of likes or shares that they. And success, unfortunately, as we alluded to, success is
quantified
measured
by
it's
social media.
quantified by social media, which is unfortunate. So for today, we'll focus a bit more about the mindset of poetry writing, even recitation as well, because it's quite similar. Our worlds are quite similar. So and something that you said last time, actually, which really resonated with me, is saying true to yourself. I'll delve into that in a bit more during the show. But tell us a bit more about what you meant by saying true to yourself.
When you say success, the unfortunate thing is, like I said, people define success by social media, the likes you get or whatever, or in any case, for example, the money you make, the amount of cars you have. You can look at all aspects of your life as to how to define success. But the true success that you should aim for is when you reach a state of self-accomplishment. This is what I wanted to achieve, and I've done it. That's what success is. It doesn't necessarily involve money. It's not attached to, materialistic. Well, it might be, but the most important thing is that you're being true to yourself, So when it comes to...
You set yourself a target.
Yeah, you set yourself a target, right? But at the same time, what you're writing is not a lie. What you're reciting is not a lie. It's not someone else's world. I think that the biggest mistake... I think is, again, like when we started off, we emulated Jabir and Basim. That's how you started, But at the same time, that's not who we are. I'm not Jabbar.
Nope.
You're not Basim.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You're Ali and I'm Nuri. And when you reach that state of realization that that your art has to reflect you as who you are as a person, that's when you reach a state of true success. And it's hard because to get there, you have to figure out who you are as a person.
Yeah.
And that's the hardest thing. That's the biggest question you're going to be asking yourself your whole life.
And then
Imam Ali says, the one who knows himself knows his Lord.
Yeah.
You can never know your Lord, and you can never know yourself, right?
Yeah.
Really. But ultimately, your life journey is always going to be a journey of discovering who you are, what you enjoy. So me, for example, I had 3 years ago, 2-3 years ago, I looked like deep inside myself and asked myself, who am I? What do I really want in life? You know, what do I dream of? What do I want to get in life? And it's through understanding that my poetry, I would say, has become more true to myself. And that's what people need to aim towards. I think a lot of poets who start off and start writing, as we did, they like to emulate other people. They like to emulate different reciters, different poets, artists emulate other artists, and that's fine. You got to start off like that.
Yeah.
But eventually you come to a point where you can't write like Nuri. You can't recite like Ali. I can't write like someone else. You can't recite like someone else. You got to be true to yourself, reciting about what you want to recite about. You know, write about what you want to write about, perform in a way that you want to perform.
see,
And being true to yourself. And the reason I say that is because when you do that, poetry is ultimately what? It's emotions on paper, right? As we've been saying. And that's what hits people. The truer your emotions are, the true people will accept it.
Yeah.
And that's the point.
I get that. But the problem is, from a reciting point of view, right? Because writing words, there's no set structure. I can write word and I don't have to follow a certain way of whoever writes. It's just whatever's in my emotion, I put it into paper. But reciting, you have to follow a form.
Yeah.
You have to. There's no other way. Because if I'm reciting for an Iraqi audience, the audience can only relate to me if I recite in the Iraqi way.
Yeah.
Okay, that's number one. So then if I try to recite the Iraqi way, the only way I'd know about that audience is if I copy or emulate someone that's an expert in that field.
Yeah.
So then my hands are tied.
Yeah.
Wallah, my hands are tied when it comes to that, because I have to copy someone.
Yeah.
And then when you copy someone, especially in your beginning life, when you copy someone, it becomes a habit. It becomes part of who you are really as a reciter.
Yeah.
Not who you are as a person, but as the reciter, the techniques, the skills, the tips that you have, it just becomes part and parcel of your second nature.
The thing is, I'm not too familiar with reciting in that way, but ultimately, obviously, everything that you have is going to be bits and pieces of other people, right? I mean, that's what it is. But the point is, the core of it has to be you. So if you ask yourself, for example, who you are an Iraqi person, right? You're an Iraqi who grew up in an Iraqi environment, who recites Iraqi Latma. So standing there and reciting Iraqi Latma is true to you.
Yeah.
It's not. You're not telling a lie, you know. And I think that also when you recite, because you've come from a family that recites, you emulate them as well. And then you look inside yourself and emulate yourself, and that's the point. I think a lot of us are lying about who we are. Sometimes, obviously, not on purpose, but we're lying about who we are. And the truer you are to yourself, the truer you put that, the more you put that in your art, the more it's going to resonate with other people. And that I get. That's why I've been saying like
that is definitely true.
Yeah.
That is from a recitation point of view. That is the emotion that you put into it. It will reflect in the audience.
Yeah, and so when I speak about being true to yourself, the truer your emotions are, the more real your emotions are. I mean, the thing is, let's be honest. I mean, we reciting and performing for Ahlul Bayt, it's a part and parcel of our lives. Sometimes it just becomes, you know, it's not like it becomes insincere, but sometimes, you know, you turn up to an event, you've done it a million times, you have to get up on the stage again and you recite. But when you get up there and you believe it, when you get up there and your heart's broken for Imam Hussein, you know your recitation is going to be 10 times better.
Yeah.
Right? And that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
We need to be in that state of mind all the time. Just sincere to yourself and true to yourself.
So for the upcoming speakers, for example, or the upcoming poets and stuff, I'm sure, you know, when they first start up, they're going to have that passion. But is that the message that you want to send to them?
I mean, it's funny because, like, I've had poets messaging me saying, you know what, Nuri, I've started to use my social media now. I want to do this like you do this. Or, for example, I've started to work with this reciter now. I want to work with him like you worked with Ali. Or, you know, and they're just literally just copying what I did in my life and trying to take that structure and put it onto their lives.
Yeah.
Everything I did, everything you did, we figured it out on the way.
Yeah.
You know, and that's what people have to do. They can't look at someone else's success, emulate it, success, emulate it, and assume that it will work for them. The
Yeah.
only way you're going to be, the only way your poetry is going to be the best it can be is if you follow your own kind of path and follow your own route and work from there.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't like to use, these are really wild examples, but you look at people like, for example, The Rock. Yeah, The Rock is a wrestler turned actor, and he became one of the most influential, successful people in Hollywood. The reason he became that is because he was true to himself, because he did things that he enjoyed.
Yeah.
He made movies about things that he enjoyed. He's on Instagram. He's being himself, and that's why people love him.
Yeah.
You know, and even you look at the film industry. The films that are doing amazing nowadays are people who are writing films about their own lives.
Yeah.
You know, and being true to themselves. That extends to all forms of art, and even successful people in general. People who are successful, again, successful is a very broad term. People who are happy are the ones who are truest to themselves, who understand themselves, and are living the lives that are meant for them. This is all very broad, but you can when you take this kind of way of thinking and implement it into your life, not just your art, into your life, then your art reflects that.
Yeah.
And I think that's where we need to be.
Yeah, no, one of the key messages for the audience to get to really get to, especially for those who are actually reciting or delivering poetry or even up on the stage. The main thing is when you're just about to go towards the pulpit or just about to go to the stage to recite, is to really believe in the poem that you're going to recite or
believe in what you're doing.
Believe in what you're doing.
Yeah.
Believe in what you're doing, and sometimes along our careers,
it's hard.
We lose touch of that.
It's not easy. I mean, I'm not even speaking about things like ego and arrogance. I'm just saying, like, sometimes you've done it a million times before. Yeah. You're just so used to it. It's so part of your second nature, which is a blessing for us, alhamdulillah. You just don't, dare I say, you don't believe in it as much as you did.
Yeah.
And we're being completely frankly honest, and
it
that's
just
the
becomes
thing.
Part and parcel of the
yeah, exactly.
The journey.
We just need to believe in it. You just need to make sure you're enjoying what you're doing. Ultimately, you're doing what you love.
Yeah.
As long as you're doing that, you're going to be successful. And that's why I said, even like now in terms of the projects that I'm doing and the poetry that I'm writing, I don't care if they get likes or not. I don't care if they get the streams I want or not. I'm doing things that are true to me, things that I enjoy, things that I want to put out there, and I hope that it touches people, but that's not the aim I'm going for. I'm expressing myself because I want to express myself. And that's the most important thing, I think.
That is fascinating.
Yeah.
That's a major change as well, because you really have to have experience in the field to gone through the highs and lows of what becoming a poet or a reciter offers, from the traveling all the way to the recognition, to the people.
The thing is, like, I'm going to speak candidly again. I don't know if you've experienced this, but I've gone through not like clinical depression, but I've had moments of like being depressed when I see that. For example, when I tie my success to people's to like it's a recognition, people inviting you or people liking your posts, and that doesn't happen, you become depressed because you're like, I'm not relevant anymore. Yeah. But that's the problem. You're not looking for relevance. You're looking for being true to yourself and expressing yourself.
Yeah.
And that's how I kind of evolved.
Yeah. Once you're happy with yourself, it's a lot deeper than we're talking about. But once you're, there's a word that I'm missing. It's not happy. It's not satisfied. But it's something along those lines. Once you're content, once you're content with the work that you do, and once you just don't care about the audience and stuff, then what you bring out is quality, because you're right, you're putting so much love into this. Someone will see that love. Yeah. And that's the main thing.
And the thing is, like, again, like something like going back to Revival, like I told you, like I hated it. People appreciated it. Yeah. Because it came from a true place. It wasn't a place I wanted to come from, but the place was real to me, and that's why it impacted people. And I think, that's just so important. Just being content with yourself, and ultimately, all you can do with all this work and all your creative art, you can only try your best. You can't. You put an album out, for example, God knows if it's going to be the album that changes the world or whatever, but you can't think like that. You just try your best, and wherever God takes it is where God will take it, and that's it. You just got to let go. You got to let go.
Yeah.
That's it. That's all it is.
And on that note, look, I could speak about this for days, because it really is a topic that touches with and resonates with me personally, and we'll share our thoughts on this in the next coming episodes. After this, or after the break, the next person you will see will be Zahra Kazmi, whose guest will be Masuma Jafar on the Dear Masuma segment of Morning Baraka, where they're going to be discussing the ziyarah benefits. The ziyarah benefits. That's just after the break.
Now we have Sister Masuma join us. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah.
So one of the topics we're going to be discussing today are the benefits of ziyarah. So we have a question, and Dear Masuma, ziyarah of all the Ahl Bayt is recommended, but especially the ziyarah of Imam Hussein at the time of Arba'in. What advice would you give to people who haven't been for ziyarah but are really keen to attend and can't make it for health and financial reasons?
Okay, so let's break this up into sort of 2 or 3 things. First of all, let's look at the benefits of the ziyarah of Imam Hussein alayhi salam. There are so many hadiths that talk about the importance of going to ziyarah of Imam Hussein alayhi salam, specifically of Imam Hussein alayhi salam. We have that it is you get the thawab of 1,000 hajj and 1,000 umrahs. You get that your sins are all forgiven, your wishes are accepted, you are fulfilled. The fact that you have angels that are allocated to you, you get Jannah. So there's so many hadiths that talk about the ziyarah of Imam Hussein alayhi salam, and there are hadiths that talk about the ziyarah of other imams as well. Now, I think one of the things that we constantly people say is the famous hadith which says that the ziyarah of Imam Hussein is greater than 1,000 hajj. So people will say, I'd rather do the ziyarah of Imam Hussein alayhi salam.
And not do the hajj.
And not do the hajj. I think there are 2 things to think about here. One is that hajj is wajib. Ziyarah is mustahab. It is a very highly recommended mustahab, but it's still mustahab. The reason why it has such a huge reward compared to the hajj is because when you're doing something that's wajib, you don't have a choice in it. You have to do it. When you're doing something that's mustahab, then that's your choice. So when you're doing something that's mustahab, God will reward you more for it. So for example, when you're praying your normal salah that you're supposed to recite, the reward of the nawafil will be greater because you're doing something that is extra. It's like the example, I think the example of you can't go to work and say, I want to get paid overtime until you've done the normal hours. So you need to make sure that the wajib is done before you ask for overtime. So there's no point me reciting the nawafil without reciting the wajib namaz, wajib salah that I need to.
Absolutely.
But at the same time, hajj doesn't become wajib on you until you can afford it.
Sure.
So you don't have to save up for it. If you can afford it, then it becomes wajib on you. Now, if you choose to spend your money on ziyarah and you don't have the money to go to hajj, then hajj isn't wajib on you. You have that choice.
Okay.
But at the same time,
it tends to be relatively cheaper, doesn't it, going on ziyarah compared to the hajj prices these days?
Yeah. But hajj is a once in a lifetime wajibat, and again, the fact that God has made it wajib means that it's something that is, quite beneficial for your soul. It's something that the soul would really, really benefit from. So I would urge people to actually try to save up to go to hajj at least once in their lifetime. And the fact that we're told that even when you've been, you should try to go again and again. In my Ramzan, we're reciting the du'as that say, Ya Allah, let me go, this year and every year. Absolutely. So again, showing the importance of hajj as well. And when you go to hajj, you will obviously go to Medina, and there you have the Holy Prophet, Bibi Fatima alayhi salam, and the Imam Hassan alayhi salam, Imam Zain al-Abidin alayhi salam, Imam Muhammad Baqir alayhi salam, and Imam Jafar Sadiq alayhi salam. So you have, you have, so many personalities in one place which you can then connect to as well. And I'm not taking it away from Imam Hussein alayhi salam at all, but what I'm saying is, I think we need to give importance to hajj as well. And
but I also do think that Baqi, for instance, is neglected in terms of that imagine we had 4 domes there. The sort of with the grandeur that we have in Karbala, and like you said, there's a maqam to Imam Hussein, absolutely undisputed. But Baqi is Imam Sajjad, went through the whole event of Karbala, buried there, and al-Banin. And it's sometimes when you sit and when you go through the personalities, you think, how would you even encompass? And because there's nothing there, it's quite easy to, for people to perhaps ignore that they're there. It's okay, the imams are there, but imagine if we had the shrines there that to say there's 4 Imams, Masum,
and the Holy Prophet, and
yeah.
Lady Fatima alayhi salam. So, you know, it's
a-
huge. And I think a lot of the times we have this strong love of Imam Hussein alayhi salam,
Yeah.
which is brilliant, which is really, really
It's a
amazing.
lifeline,
Yeah.
it really is.
But at the same time, I think we need to build our connection with the other Aima as well, because there's
Definitely.
lessons to be learned from all of them.
Yeah.
So I think it's really important, you know, to be sort of to make that intention to go not only to the ziyarat of Imam Hussein alayhi salam, but to the ziyarat of all the Aima.
I was going to ask you, so if the Hajj is the Hajj and that's 1,000, and Imam Hussein, the ziyarah is 1,000 equivalent of reward, is there some sort of similarity between because Hajj is not easy, and in this month it's coming up to being a hotter season and it's always hot in Saudi Arabia, but do you think, is there something that God's trying to say, well, why the 1,000 compared to that sort of, okay, it's wajib and that's a mustahab, but 1,000 on top of what's the significance?
Again, if you look at the actual hadith, it talks about those who go knowing the status of Imam Hussein alayhi salam, understanding, you know, who he is. So it's not just, oh, you go to ziyarah of Imam Hussein and you get 1,000 hajj. It's not that. And I think we don't truly know the status of Imam Hussein alayhi salam. Even after you've read about him and you know you've learnt about him, you still don't understand the status of Imam Hussein alayhi salam. So I don't think that, you know, I personally would get the thawab of 1,000 hajj, because I don't think I know him well enough to be able to get that. But you know, I would hope I would get some. But I think, again, all of these experiences are so different. I mean, one of the hadiths about Hajj that I read recently, where Imam Ali alayhi salam says that Hajj is there for Allah to test your submission. And it is about submitting, because you do so many things in Hajj which you have to do because it's wajib, and you know, logically it may not make sense, or you know, you think, but why anti-clockwise? Why 7 times? Why, you know, do I have to hit this stone, you know, and things like that? But you do it, and it's about just submitting to the will of Allah. And if you can take that lesson and bring it back to London, and keep that submission going, then can you imagine the sort of slave I would actually become, where I would submit to His will fully because I've learnt the lesson of submission. Whereas when you go for other ziyarat, you're left to do what you want and when you want, and you know, whether you want to go to the Haram or whether you don't want to, what time you want to go, and it's very much easier. So you know, that concept of submission is not as easily learnt.
There's a time, isn't there, for each action in Hajj. But I think I performed Hajj before I did the ziyarah of Imam Hussein, because it wasn't easy at those times to do it, and I think I understood Karbala more having been to Hajj, because the Prophet Ibrahim is asked to sacrifice his child, who then actually isn't, whereas Imam Hussein went through so much more multifold to actually have gone through that action. So where the intention was there for the Prophet Ibrahim, but Imam Hussein went through it, and his status, I guess, for me, is that much greater, because to live through seeing your child, you know, cut into pieces. I mean, you know, there's so many ways, and I think for people's own benefit, they would probably understand. I don't know, that's certainly my perspective, that you'd understand Karbala's actions, that he actually went through so much. You know, Bibi Hajar ran for water. They didn't have water for 3 days. They didn't have, you know, and they had no respite at the end. So there was so much that you think they're actually very interlinked, those two.
No, very much so. And also, I think, you know, sort of maybe seeing the way that the Imams are treated in Medina, again, makes you realise how Imam Hussein alayhi salam was treated in his time.
Absolutely.
You know, because you forget that when you see, you know, the gold dome and you know, all
He's
the
a king, isn't he, the
yeah,
city?
Exactly. So I think this actually brings it back home. You know, it's sort of, this is how it was. And again, these are Muslims. So it, you know, the whole concept of what happened in Karbala, where it was done by Muslims to, you know, the grandson of the Holy Prophet. Again, Muslims are doing this, you know, to the...
Absolutely.
And as a woman, it's like the way, you know, the rights that are taken away from me when I'm in, you know, when I'm in Saudi, and the rights that were given to me by the Prophet, and now you're taking those away. You know, it sort of makes you realise what Bibi Zainab alayhi salam went through. You know, things like that.
It's very difficult, because I think, you know, you have such a passion for Karbala, and Imam saying, you know, it's the love of your life, and you know, as you said, when you go there, you have a belonging, you have a, you know, this is, you know, I'm with my people, we have the same belief. in our own way, we interpret the love of Imam Hussein, and it's such a contrast to Baqi and Medina, and for me, and again, everybody has their own way to deal with things, but for me, it's like, okay, well, we have the visitors to Karbala, but how about we take that forward and go to Medina, because it's that much harder. I mean, nobody wants to feel isolated there, but you think when our Imam Zuhur alayhi salam, inshallah, comes quickly, that when it comes, it's not going to be a big fanfare. It's going to be very difficult. His voice raising, and those ones who are on the path of truth will recognize it. But for the rest of us, it's going to be, again, a question: are we going to help? Are we going to? So it's each point we're sort of challenged, aren't we, to say, are you going to neglect the Imams there? There's 4. Or and yes, we inshallah all get to go to Karbala. But it's just such a dilemma. We've all got to.
And I think a lot of the times, I think we should push ourselves to do something that we find difficult, because that's where growth is.
Yes.
When you come out of your comfort zone, again, like going to Karbala is amazing. You just feel like you belong.
Absolutely.
You feel that love, that everyone else has, and everyone's doing the same thing, and everyone's together, and it's amazing. Yeah. It's absolutely amazing, and it's wonderful.
Yeah.
But again, like you're saying, it's important to come out of your comfort zone and do the things that are difficult, and do things that, where I'm doing things because God's told me to, not because I have a say in it. And actually feeling that concept of servitude and submitting to His will. I think that's really important.
Something I wanted to quickly touch on was Ziyara. So we have out of season, and people will go because it's obviously less time, it's less busy. So obviously we have the religious calendar, we have school calendars. Are there different sort of rewards for going at different times?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, no, we have that. There are specific times where there is more blessings. So, like on the day of Arafat, Arba'in, Muharram. In fact, Ashura is not as much emphasized as Arba'in is.
Sure.
Ashura is actually more recommended to spend in your own hometowns, because that's how the message of Imam Hussein was spread all over the world. Whereas Arba'in, you're recommended to go to to Karbala. So there are more blessings, and obviously there's more blessings on that day, and then to be in that place, there's even more blessings. So yes, there is, but the crowds are much, much greater. So again, when you go at these times, you may not get to go next to the Zari and get your fulfillment. Not that you ever feel fulfilled, but you don't get as much time. There's more crowds, there's more pushing, and again, I think there's lots of lessons to be learnt from that as well. It's much easier when it's less crowded, and it's much more difficult when it's more crowded, but there's more reward in going in when it's more crowded. So again, when you come out of your comfort zone where it's more difficult, there's more growth, there's more lessons to be learned. How you interact with others when others are maybe not behaving in the way that they should. And again, you're only responsible for your own actions. So do you let others dictate what your actions should be, or do you do what Allah would expect you to do?
Yeah, no, it's I've actually managed to get claustrophobia in my later life because of the crowds in Karbala, but it's worth it, and it's definitely, like you said, somebody said, the shrine is in your heart. It's not about touching the zari and actually physically needing to be there, but have that connection in your own heart to feel that it doesn't matter where you are in the world, His love is with you.
And again, we have hadith for those who because there are people who may not be able to afford to go, or health-wise can't go. And again, we have hadith that says that if you do wuzu, ghusl, and then stand at the highest point in your house and just face towards Karbala and recite the ziyarat of Imam Hussein, it's like you're there. Again, it's the intention.
Absolutely.
And it's the the presence of heart and the presence of mind and the sincerity of the ziyarah that you're reciting.
Absolutely. And because of that, and you could be there and be further away, and actually being far away, you could actually be closer to people. So it's definitely not a physical thing.
No, not at all.
Thank you so much. We can speak about ziyarah all day long, really. It's just one of the most beautiful blessings that we've been granted, and inshallah we all have the opportunity to go. Thank you so much. And inshallah, now next up we have mini Husseinis.
Assalamu alaikum, my name is Zahra Kazmi. I'm here today at a new Husseini. I'll be joining the majlis and do a bit of interviewing. So come on inside and I'll show you what I'll be doing. The lecturer has the role of teaching us many lessons, from the event of Karbala and the life of Imam Hussein alayhi salam. When they mentioned the stories of the children in Karbala, it shows me that anyone can be a khadim no matter the age.
We will fight forever. Our home is Karbala, where the youth of the Shia. Hussein's flag is our treasure.
Assalamu alaikum. I'm here with Manhal and he's a lecturer. And I'm going to ask him a few questions how to be a better Mini Husseini. Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum salam.
How are you?
Alhamdulillah, how are you?
Good. I want to ask, what made you want to give lectures?
In actual fact, I wanted to give lectures because I feel like all of the lecturers up there are very old. They don't know how to communicate with the youth, with the younger children. So I felt that as a young person, I would communicate more effectively, better with the younger children by giving lectures on things that are relative to us in this world.
How old are you and start giving lectures?
I was around 16 years old.
Why did you recite for Imam Hussein alayhi salam?
There isn't a better service that anyone can give to anyone else other than Imam Hussein alayhi salam. Imam Hussein doesn't need us, we need him. So we recite to get closer to the Ahlul Bayt, and we recite to get closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala through the Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam. And that's why I recite for them.
How do you prepare for the Rijali?
So usually I have a topic that I want to talk about, and I have 3 subtopics, and I have those in my head, and in the lecture, number 1, do it, number 2, do it, and obviously I have background preparation and background research.
Can you give me and the Mini Husseinis a tip about serving Imam Hussein?
I'd say learn about Imam Hussein, learn about his life outside of Karbala, learn about what he was outside of Karbala. Don't limit Imam Hussein to just 10 days. Learn because he lived for 58 years, not 10 days. So learn what he did throughout his life. Inshallah, you serve him the best of service.
Thank you for your time. See you guys next time. Bye.
Yes, many thanks to the young Mini Husseini who we are following her journey as she realizes and comes to terms with what's associated with actually preparing for Muharram, preparing for Arba'in as well. We thank her for her time, and now it's part of the show where we're looking into the jurisprudential context of Muharram and Arba'in. As we are during the time of Arba'in now, the millions and millions of viewers, millions and millions of Zuwar, the visitors flocking towards Abu Abdullah al-Hussein to commemorate the 40th of Imam Hussein alayhi salam. Myself and Zahra are welcoming, of course, Sayyid Mohsin Shah, who will be shedding some light into the jurisprudential aspects of Arba'in specifically. And we've covered many a topic in our previous shows. But firstly, Assalamu alaikum, Sayyid.
Alaikum salam wa rahmatullah.
How are you?
I'm very well. How are you?
Alhamdulillah, good, thank you.
Good.
Welcome.
Well.
Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. So as I was saying, we've covered a whole range of different topics, but many of them have been Muharram related. So looking into preparing for Muharram, the different rituals and acts, as well as the supplications associated with Muharram. Today we're going to focus on the walk itself, and as we've seen in the episode today, the number of visitors to Imam Hussein is increasing by the day, all culminating on the 40th day of Imam Hussein alayhi salam, where the millions of visitors will be pledging their allegiance, visiting the shrine, and also doing the ziyarah of Arba'in. It's an actual ziyarah of Arba'in. So we wanted to understand, and I think Zahra maybe can shed light on this, but there's a question from Muhammad in Karbala.
So he says, dear Sayyid, every year millions of people flock to Karbala to commemorate the 40th day after the death of Imam Hussein. What are the benefits of this walk? Where and from whom did this walk and ziyarah start?
There's a couple of different elements onto that question. So just to break it down, do you want to break it down, or shall I?
You may do so.
So breaking that down, first of all, the millions of people that flock, I think that's always something of interest to people.
I think they have world record breaking numbers, don't they?
It's a world's largest peace gathering, so it's quite a...
So the benefits, you want to start with the benefits of the walk specifically, and then we'll go into the historical
we'll go from a fiqhi perspective.
Yeah, please do.
It is mustahab to do the walk, and it's mustahab to do anything, in terms of khidmah towards the Ahlul Bayt, whether it's to, if you were to go to do ziyarah, is you get thawab for that, it's mustahab. But imagine if you drove instead of flying, Yeah, then imagine if you walked instead of driving. So the thawab and the effort you put in, would increase, and the thawab you get as well would also increase. So it's always mustahab to do ziyarah, and it's always mustahab to, go towards the Ahlul Bayt and to struggle towards the Ahlul Bayt and to struggle for the Ahlul Bayt. There's always thawab in that. In terms of arba'een, I remember the hadith is the signs of a Shia.
Yeah.
To have the ring on the right finger, to pray the 51 rak'ah, and to be in Karbala, in the Haram of Abu Abdullah on arba'een day.
Right.
Is one of the signs. I think that's what really, really encourages the people to go towards Abu Abdullah and arba'een. And not to forget Sayyidah Zainab. When she had a child, she was coming back from Sham, and then there was a road to Karbala and there was a road to Najaf. And Imam Sajjad asked her, "Oh, aunt, where do you want to go?" "This is towards home and this is towards Abu Abdullah." And she said, "I want to go towards Abu Abdullah." And they went down that route. So also, to honor and commemorate the footsteps she took towards Abu Abdullah, and to feel her pain and her struggle. I mean, we go, and for us it's very, very easy to go to Najaf, to pay our condolences and respects to Imam Ali, and then head towards Karbala. But imagine having lost your family, your brothers, your cousins, your friends, and then to be captured, and then the whole story and narrative, as you know, and then to walk all the way back to Karbala. This is what we do is nothing compared to what Sayyidah Zainab did.
This is a taster, isn't it? And I think obviously there's different cities, and I'd love to see from a Google map perspective of how it must look from satellite that people from Basra, I mean, it takes weeks for them to
3
arrive,
weeks,
doesn't it?
People from Baghdad, Najaf, all over Iraq, people walk, and some even do it barefoot.
I heard somebody, two people walked from China. And all the way.
We heard this in previous episodes, actually.
Yeah.
They walked from China.
Yeah.
MashaAllah.
Someone's actually, two people have.
How long did it take them?
Took them a couple of months.
Yeah.
I think maybe more than a couple of months.
Can't remember how many days.
But we often hear stories of people walking from Iran, for example.
Yes. Yeah.
That'll take a couple of days.
Definitely.
So it doesn't
matter where.
It doesn't matter where, and it doesn't really. The amazement kind of doesn't really surprise me because of the fact that, as you were saying, the importance of the service and how much service and how much ajr, how much effort you put into the service to Imam Hussein as-salam, especially when it comes to walking. So we can understand from your perspective there's a lot of benefit when it comes to that. So I guess when it comes to who, where and from who did this walk and ziyarah start? You mentioned Sayyidah Zainab. Do you want to shed a bit more light about that?
Sayyidah Zainab, after the tragedies that befell upon her, and also her entourage, Imam Sajjad and all the relatives and cousins, and as they were freed from Sham, and they stayed there for a couple of days to do majlis and to inform the people of what happened, and then they decided to return home. And on their route towards Medina, they came up a place where one route went towards Medina and the other route went towards Karbala. And she said, "I want to go to my brother." And she took that route. And, they finally got back to Karbala, and, they wept. They finally had a chance to actually grieve and weep properly after the death. Because they were given a chance before when Imam Hussein was alive. And how tragic is this? Now Abu Abdullah is alive and says, "Right, this is your chance to cry over me, because you won't get a chance afterwards." And before he left the tent, they had, a couple of minutes to cry and weep and mourn him while he was still there on his horse, ready for battle. Yeah. And then left at the camp and went to fight, never to return. So they finally got to say goodbye and make peace with their loved ones and return back to Medina. And I think this is Arba'een is that, because people forget Karbala didn't finish on Ashura. Yeah. That was just the beginning.
Absolutely. Yeah.
That was the end of the beginning. There's a whole new chapter of what happened to the daughters of Zahra and what happened to the daughters of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wa alihi. And if you look at it from a non-Muslim point of view of what happened, that the politics that went behind this saga between the Umayyads and Bani Hashim, and this seizure and this trying to grasp this control of power, going back and forth, it really breaks the heart and adds so much drama to the story that you think, how do these people cope with some of such things?
Yeah. So I'm very interested to know, because again, what we see now is the culture materializing, And there's always, when it comes to the rituals associated with Imam Hussein, there's always the root, which is what the Imams did and what we see as part of religion, and the culture as well. So what is culture and what is actual religion? For example, did the Imams ever embark on a journey to Imam Hussein alayhi salam, and is that considered part of religion, and what we see now as culture? What's the difference?
Definitely we have many narrations of people and the Imam visiting Abu Abdullah, and obviously the transportation at that time was very, very limited, so they would have been on horseback or on camel and definitely on foot to allow their animals to rest. So we do know of cases where the Imam used to go visit Abu Abdullah, and to shed more light on that, the recommendations of going to visit Abu Abdullah, and so many narrations in regards to visiting the shrine of Abu Abdullah is more thawab than Hajj, and so many narrations on being there, so many sins are forgiven. They say while you're walking, the sun that hits the face of the Zahir burns away the sins that he has. And every footstep, God knows how many sins are being forgiven. And every footstep, you don't know how many angels are with you by your side, asking for your forgiveness and asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to reward you even more and more on your journey. We have plenty of narrations in regards to this.
Right.
So, in recent years, we've seen the sort of change of, since obviously political change in Iraq has allowed more people to participate. And obviously,
Yes.
I don't know if you want to give input and share what Iraq could have been in the more restrictive years. But nowadays, certainly, we have such a array of hospitality along the way from Najaf, certainly the ones from the west. We walk from Najaf to Karbala. And how is that in terms of, how can that be perceived as a positive thing, or would you say that, there's too much of, people saying it's a distraction and that, people should focus on going to Imam Hussein? How is it from?
I don't see any, negativity or any disadvantage, or I don't even see any other country or any other people that welcome and are so hospitable towards their guests than those who look after the Zahir of Abu Abdullah during Arba'in. Tell me, where do you go where you'll have 1 million people come in and all of them are fed and are given, medicine, clothing, shelter. Where in the world does this happen anyway? Apart from when there's like an international crisis, like a natural disaster, and then you get foreign aid. Apart from that, there's
no aid here. This is people's aid.
There is nowhere in the world where you go to visit the country and everyone steps forward
to help you,
and to just be hospitable. And the hospitality you receive for free, there's no charge, and they don't even accept anything in return, and all they want is maybe your dua, or maybe they'll say, a couple of steps please dedicate to my passed away, my father.
And it makes you wonder, do they see a benefit or a hikmah, wisdom, more than the people visit?
I think this is the love of Abu Abdullah, that people are so possessed with the love of Abu Abdullah that even the guests of Abu Abdullah are treated like kings.
Beloved to them. It's true, and I think I totally agree with you that I don't think any other country could host such large numbers and with such kindness, hospitality, because this is a country that's undergoing so much political turmoil, and yet this is such a focal point of the year of people sharing their stories. They save the whole year round to be able to serve the Zawar of Imam Hussein, and it's just quite phenomenal, isn't it? Because often where we come from, it's like, am I okay? Can I afford it, and will I be able to share from what I have? But these people.
So just to add to that as well, because the people of Iraq, you mentioned pre sort of the regime collapse, and they weren't allowed to profess their love, they weren't allowed to commemorate, they weren't allowed to walk, they weren't allowed to do anything. So it's actually a testament to the miracle of Imam Hussein's message that within a 30-year period, 30 years, 40 years is a good duration for things to die down, certain cultures to die down, rituals to die down. You can lose a lot, but they've managed to keep hold of what they, what was dear to them, and that was a service to Imam Hussein. to the extent it became explosive, in the sense that just after the regime fell, the amount of suppression they managed to really bring it out as much as they can. It's like, you know, being a bottle just capped for 30 years and then suddenly you just release that bottle and all the service just came out all at once. So you in a way you can't really blame them, because they were like, well, we've been oppressed for 30-40 years. We weren't allowed to show our service to Imam Hussein, and this is part and parcel of what we are as a culture and what we are as a country.
And I think with the introduction of social media and you know, people filming and loading up the videos, it's brought a wider audience towards Arba'in. And I think that, you can see by the numbers, some say estimated 27-30 million people with that 2-week period are in and out of Karbala, and more and more people are joining and want to be part of the experience and part of, you know, the Arba'in walk.
And it's an amazing experience to go through. And you know, I remember a lady had cancer on her foot. She's done the walk a few times actually, and she was telling me the first night we were resting that, you know, back home I'm unable to walk 100 yards, and she said, and to think she'd done a whole day's walking at that point.
It's a good couple of miles, that, isn't it?
It's just phenomenal. You think, where are these miracles coming from? So it's such a miraculous opportunity, and anybody who has the opportunity ought to go, because certainly if you can't do the whole walk, one day walk, you know, there's so much, like you're saying, blessings in it, and just experience it, because when we're not used to getting things for free in these countries, and I think it's one of the sad side effects of being in societies where it's not about sharing and giving, you know, hospitality, whereas this is quite Islamic, cultural to us, to witness that in a country that has little in terms of those people that are serving, and to see that they'll give everything for the sake of it. It's a lesson for us, really, I think, as well. So I don't know if you've got anything to share, something that's really...
No, I guess I wanted to just shed a bit of light just before, because we've got like 30-40 seconds left, in terms of the Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam. So you mentioned Sayyidah Zainab choosing to return back to Karbala. Have the rest of the Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam also taken part in those journeys? In which ones?
Imam Sajjad was there, definitely. Then, you know, like, to be honest, the Ahlul Bayt, they had special powers that we all know, with the blessings of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, of being at two places at the same time, or being able to travel many distances within a blink of an eye. Now God knows how many ziyarah that they have completed.
Right.
But definitely, because we've been having the hadith how every prophet yearns the visitation of Imam Abdullah al-Hussein. You know, and I would recommend the book by, you know, His Eminence the Grand Ayatollah Sayyid Sadiq Shirazi, in terms of the secrets of the ziyarah of Imam Abdullah. And there's so much you can read in there in regards to the benefits of visiting Imam Hussein, the miracles of visiting Imam Hussein, the Aimma and the Nabi that they used to go, the prophets that used to go visit Abu Abdullah, the angels that go visit Abu Abdullah. Everything is mentioned in that book with references.
That's quite beautiful. Because
and also not forgetting the Imam of our time,
absolutely,
who definitely is there with Abu Abdullah.
But certainly on the different occasions you go to during the year to Karbala, I think on the day of Arba'in it has a completely different vibe, and you're like visiting a king, you know, and he's majestic. You know, that's just such power in his shrine, and Imam Hussein alayhi salam, I'm obviously referencing. And it's something that really, I pray, inshallah, we are all destined and invited to go again, and our viewers. And I don't know, is that we come to the end?
Yeah, I think that brings us to an end quite nicely, in the sense that we pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for ourselves and the viewers out there to be granted the permission, not just granted the journey, but actually permission, because a lot of it is actually Imam Hussein alayhi salam requesting you to be there. So we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to allow us to be granted the permission of attending the ziyarah of Arba'in. Sayyid Muhsin, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for having me.
From myself and Zahra, we thank you as well for the viewers of watching this show, Morning Baraka. We hope that you've gained some benefits and insights into many aspects of Muharram and Arba'in. And of course, inshallah, we look forward to seeing you in the next episode. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.